Hello and welcome to Games and Tea's second podcast. It's still for 24 minutes International Tabletop Day, so hurrah for that. We've been having a day just basically playing games and eating. So yeah, I'm drinking tea because that's kind of relevant. So today we're going to be doing a similar to 404 Law Not Found, just another unboxing of a brand new Kickstarter release, just to sort of see what the quality of the components are like, how it's printed out, blah 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 blah, and just whether it looks like a professional product. Basically, we're not going to be looking into gameplay because that's what the review's for. This is just purely opening it up, seeing how it looks. So obviously I'm Rob, I'm back again as the team master, and today I'm here with Phil.
Hello.
And he is one of our play testers at Games and Tea, and one of the members of our little Amsterdam Pirate Tour last year. We were supposed to have Toby with us today, but he hasn't been able to make it, so love to you, Toby, if you actually listen at any point. If you don't, then you won't hear this comment anyway, so
It's largely redundant.
yeah, basically. So what we're opening today is it's a game from Mad Ape Games, and it's called Clash: Dawn of Steam, and it's basically a dueling card game with a sort of steampunk vibe to it. While I cut it open, I'm going to have a quick... Well, actually, no, I'm not going to really do anything. I mean, when I did 404, I was kind of going to talk about it as I was opening it, and then realised I didn't have the ability to multitask that well. So I kind of opened it and then started talking about it as if I was talking about it while opening it.
Especially because they've really wrapped that one. If nothing else, the packaging is wrapped really well.
Yeah, kudos for some fantastic packaging. Also, it's gold, gold wrapped in paper. I'm going to give it marks for that. In fact, you know what, I'm not even going to edit any of this out.
This is a sense of prestige.
This is just some beautiful rambling. Alright, so we are now down to
the priority mail.
Yeah, the second layer of unwrapping. Oh, interesting. If you did, anyone who did listen to the last podcast, I was saying that 404 Law Not Found was due to be received May of last year, so it was actually about a year, no, actually June or July of last year, so it was getting on for a year late. It was quite overdue. And I was saying that one of my friends, G-Morts, from the G-Morts Chaotica blog, he actually mentioned to me that he backs a lot of Kickstarter projects, and was saying that quite often you will get them up to a year late, and basically if it's up to 12 months late, you can kind of consider it to be on time, basically. Clash was actually only backed last summer, and the estimated shipping date for this was actually March this year, so it's just come in at the beginning of April, so this has actually come in pretty much on time, so yeah. Credit to them. Massive credit to them for being able to hit the deadline they set themselves in the first place. So.
I think that seems to be rare for Kickstarters, and as we were saying earlier in the day, especially when you've got things to do with, like, this one is its own, as far as I'm aware, it's its own license. But I mean, I know some of the Kickstarters, like I've been experiencing with the license, because the Aliens versus Predator miniatures thing is, I'm not actually even sure when that is going to arrive. It's in its final stages, but thankfully they've got their own IP, and then that's something to kind of look at if you ever back in a Kickstarter. If it's a license thing, because they have to go through all the proper channels, at least a year you're probably looking past the point that they say, just for it to be on time.
Yeah.
Just to do with licensing processes. So that can kind of become an issue.
Yeah. So a bit about Clash. Like I say, it's a steampunk kind of themed game. It's a dueling card game. The two things about it which kind of appealed to me, which made me want to back it in the first place. First of all, it's a fixed deck game. 'Cause I do enjoy Magic the Gathering. I play it myself. I've got God knows how many cards. I do love it. But the pretty much the one and only thing about Magic that bothers me is it feels more like a deck building game rather than a card playing game. Because usually the games are won or lost before you even actually start playing. It's who's built the best deck, basically, and you're just playing each other to find who has won the deck building game at home.
It can also be a bit pay to win on that respect, because if you pay for the good cards, if you're willing to pay the premiums in order to either just buy lots to get them or to buy them as individual cards, which seems to be the current going strategy, you can win quite easily there. I think when I was working in the business, we always used to define them as collectible card games, such as Magic, and living card games, which might bring out expansions, but they are self-contained. expansions. So it's still a living system, and I think again, much like you, that latter system I much prefer because you've got a self-contained unit that is playable, and it's not who can list hammer the best. It'll be like, I have built a great list, and I can basically show you the list, and I'll go, oh, that list has won, and then leave. You actually get a game out of it, and there's other tactics that come into it. So I think that is appealing for this type of game, especially for early backers.
I mean, that's kind of one of my preferred ways of playing Magic was sort of fixed deck games, things like Commander and stuff like that, where you buy your deck, the deck, it's built, you just play with that. It adds more to the game itself that you are just playing against your opponent, not playing against their budget, as you say.
Yes.
And then the second, obviously that is the first thing that appealed to me about Clash. The second thing which I really like the sound of when I was reading about it on Kickstarter, actually in fairness, I should point out the first thing that made me back before any of this was the artwork. They had a couple of examples of the artwork online and it looked gorgeous. So that was thing number one. That made me actually read up about it, which is where I found out that it was a fixed deck dueling game. So that was kind of item number two. And then the third thing which appealed to me was it's not just a case of like hammering against your opponent's life force. It's not like Yu-Gi-Oh, like Magic or something, where this is your opponent's starting health, you've got to get that down to 0 or deplete their deck or something. The two different players have actually got different win conditions, so you are fully playing your own game to get to your goal, and your opponent is doing the same, trying to get to their goal while trying to stop you getting to your goal, instead of just hammering out the same thing against each other until eventually one kind of crumbles and gives way. It's
kind of like an interesting version of asymmetrical gameplay because you've got the two different objectives. So I guess in that way you don't go, we are both trying to do the same thing. You've at least got to consider how not only to stop them but how to manoeuvre yourself into a better position. Yeah, which is an interesting mechanic.
Right, so now we are into the priority mailbox, and so first things first, the actual game box that it comes in. Now, again, something that I mentioned on the last podcast is that I have in the past backed games on Kickstarter where the artwork itself has been absolutely fine, nothing wrong with it in principle, but by the time that it's been blown up to the size to print onto a game box, it started to get a bit pixelated and all that, and doesn't look like, basically it wasn't high enough resolution to justify being on a game box. Looking at the Clash box, I think it actually looks mostly... It almost looks... I don't know what you think, Phil, but it looks mostly okay, but some of the writing, I think, looks almost like it's on the verge of going a bit too pixelated. It's like it's not quite there, but it's getting like it's close. Yeah, it's standard definition, not high definition. Basically, this is DVD to your normal Blu-ray. Yeah,
as you're saying, the artwork itself is broadly speaking really nice. I think the lines are pretty good. There might be on some of the edges you almost look like you're getting a slight blurring, but it's nothing too extreme, and that could just be the art style. But this little bit of text at the back, it's almost look like it's just going a bit fuzzy. Is that a way to describe it on the text? But it's not unreadable by any means. It's just you can tell it's probably been scaled up a little bit, but it's easy to look at, and it's not. It doesn't confuse the writing a little bit. I think the other place you could see it is on that ages 12.
Yeah, that's quite a bit more clear there. At the side.
Because you've got the white on the black lines.
Just to clarify, we are both 12 and up, so we are allowed to be looking at this game.
Was that a proviso? Because I should probably... No. But other than that...
Damn it, you showed me your ID, Phil!
It's an elaborate fake. It says I'm 27. It's the beard. Well, but no, it's a nice. Broadly speaking, I think quite nice.
I am actually slightly. It sounds like I'm getting nitpicky, even though we're only at the box stage. But I'm actually a little bit disappointed at the flimsiness of the box material. I mean, I know that Kickstarter projects aren't always to the highest budget, and they do have to kind of make do with what they've got. But at the end of the day, this is still a game. This is going to be carted around in the bag, and it's going to be on a shelf with other games piled on top of it and stuff like that. And this isn't the kind of card quality that I'd expect of a gaming box.
Seeing as it's been in a pretty sturdy box that we've had to like break into, the wear on these corners is concerning for like long-term storage, because obviously the corners are, I mean, you get scuffs on any corners, but as you're saying with this cardstock, and then basically it's just a folded assembly, it's not a rigid.
I mean, again, I'm going back to, you know, I do apologise for keep making referrals to the last podcast. It's purely because it's the only one we've done so far. But the last one, looking at 404, which is actually within arm's reach. Again, it's another Kickstarter project. It was actually done to a similar budget, and that's a proper game box.
Mm-hmm.
It's thick cardboard. It's basically, that is something which is going to stand the.
That's pretty hardware, and you could stack that, and you wouldn't really worry about things on top of it or things either side to it. You've got a lot more options. With that, I'd say I'd always want to be keeping it horizontal and not putting any weight on it, which is fine if you've got one or two little games, but...
Anyway, that's us nitpicking about the box done. At the end of the day, it is more about the game that's inside, so how do you get in?
This box is not sturdy enough. Cannot get in box.
Oh, here we go. There is a... Actually, does this peel off? Okay, what you can't obviously see, because this is only an audio recording, is there is a great big Mad Ape Games sticker just across the just basically sealing the box shut. But it is quite big and fairly. And I'm kind of hoping this is easy peel, because
if that
tears, then that's going to ruin a box which has already got a fair bit of criticism, and to be honest, can't really stand to take any more.
No,
I mean, you know, okay, you want to have your company logo on the box. It's an important thing, but generally you print it on the box, not on a sticker, which you then put on the box, which you then have to ruin the box to get into said box. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that's not easy peeling, is it?
Easy peel, no.
This is going to be the most exciting 3 minutes of podcasting you're ever going to listen to. As two grown men attempt to remove a sticker from a box. In fact, if I try and peel it off, it's just going to ruin the box. It's a shame. I'm going to have to just cut through it, and it's a shame because it basically means that the artwork on the box is kind of being
somewhat obscured as well, I think.
That's what I was going for.
Yeah, that's somewhat frustrating. I mean, I don't know whether having an easy peel sticker adds a particularly amount more to the budget, but it would have been nice so you can have that as like a box without, especially because I think everyone will do what we did, get halfway through the sticker, give up and cut it, and then you've got a sticker that is half torn. Right,
so inside, first things first, a nice little card just advertising their next Kickstarter game called Exfiltrate Xenos 6. It's a tile placement science fiction prison escape board game, Escape or Perish. I've got to admit, they did send me an email about this the other day, and I had a look at it, and I'm actually quite interested in having a look when that does go live. So I shall have a gander, but at the moment I'm kind of hoping that they'll put a bit more effort, at least into printing and all that jazz, than they have into this. But in fact, they seem to have put a bit more effort into the advertising card for Exfiltrate than they have with the game box.
What does this say? He says, rubbing his face.
Okay, it's actually worth pointing out that I pledged for the game and an art book. I've only got the game here. I don't know if the art book's going to follow, or if this is something I'm going to have to email them about, but I have not actually received everything that I pledged for, so I'm a bit disappointed with that at the moment. So,
or at least a note saying the art book will follow, or something. Maybe they'll send an email.
So come on, Mad Ape. Okay, right now. Okay, I've got to be honest. So far, it has sounded like we've been a bit whingy. Yeah. To be honest, at the end of the day, we aren't an advertising blog; we're a games review blog. And the most recent game review that we've done was for the Batman edition of Love Letter. And as I was saying to Phil earlier, because we're trying to be neutral, we're trying to be objective about everything, we are picking holes where we can, just because we want to highlight these things for other people, not because we necessarily have anything against the game itself. And even Batman Love Letter, we were kind of being really kind of, what can we pick holes in about this? So
I don't think anything, or it should be really hard to get a perfect score, because I think if anything, with these, certainly with me, I will be almost overly critical, because I prefer to highlight something that someone might have an issue with, even if I'm okay with it, because then that's what a review serves to do. Be like, hey, I'm fine with this, but this is a thing, this might be something that someone's going to have a problem with, it might put someone off, so I really want to highlight that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we've been basically trying to go for. So it does sound like we've been very whiny about this so far, but that is purely because we are trying to pick holes where we can. Now that we're into the box, and got over the thing with the art book, I'm actually about to bring up the first, oh my god, this is very nice thing, and that is the player cards. I'm assuming, again, obviously, haven't played the game yet, or I was about to say haven't played the game yet or even looked at the rule book, when I suddenly realise I don't seem to have a rule book.
Setting... so,
okay, that's something we're going to...
That might be...
Well, that's something we're going to be coming to shortly anyway. But that was a slight sidetrack there. What I was about to say is, not having read the rules or anything yet, not entirely knowing what these are, but presumably these are some kind of way of keeping track of where you are with respect to your goal and stuff like that. But these appear to be the player cards for whichever character in the game you're playing as. And these, the card stock is very nice. The printing, the artwork, sorry, is again absolutely gorgeous. Although, just having flicked through, again there seems to be a similar issue with these as there was with the box, in that things getting blown up are starting to get, as you said, Phil, a bit fuzzy more than anything else. I mean, take a gander for yourself, but it was on this one, Raven Storm Shroud, her artwork in particular, I was thinking looks a bit fuzzy, but like I say, the artwork itself, very nice, just doesn't seem to have...
Yeah, I'd certainly on that one. I think you're getting a lot more on the lighter colours. This dark one, the Panstrom Swiftdra, the Praeton High Overseer. I'm sorry if I butchered all that pronunciation and someone wants to play this game being like, oh, he's got it wrong.
You're not saying the words right.
I'm not saying the words right.
Klaatu, Rata.
But I think with these lighter colours, any blurring that is there kind of seems to get amplified. It doesn't make them look ugly. As you say, this cardstock is lovely, and they're very nice. And when I say gloss, I don't mean that they're going to blind you, but it does mean that they, sounds silly to say, but they slide off each other quite nicely. They don't gum together or are overmassed.
Yeah, so I think a very popular thing at the moment to see in games seems to be making cards with a sort of almost satin finish to them, and
almost texture sometimes. Yeah,
and it seems that it doesn't affect things like the artwork and the printing and all that. But I do think because they've got a bit more almost friction to them, they become dog-eared a lot quicker.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
and I think these are actually quite a nice, and also because they're a bit glossier. If you are someone like me, because I'm weird and anal about these things, fingerprints are a lot easier to get off.
yes.
If they do get there, because they're shiny, you can buff them off.
In fact, I didn't have to look at the artwork on the back of these.
They're quite nice. They seem to be faction orientated almost.
And these ones, actually, these have also translated onto the card size very nicely. I mean, as you were saying a moment ago, the lighter colours seem to be the ones that suffer. So those two with the lighter background, that is nice and crisp and clear. Yeah. And it's not losing anything there, which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to see. And it's a nice kind of like, it's very thematic. It captures the feel of it immediately. You kind of go, oh, I know what sort of world this is. I mean, certainly with a game like this, you want to forge a narrative, and I think it's doing that pretty well. I had noticed one thing about the box. Basically, the cards you get come in these little bags.
Yeah, standard resealable
bags. Yeah. Which are fine, but I'm going to guess, as with any standard resealable polythene bags, if you're a little bit rough with them putting them back in, they're going to start to split.
Yeah.
Because they do. That's kind of how bags work, no matter how good you are with them. And my only worry is once they split, which they will, especially if you're like me, there's no compartmentalisation at all to the box.
No, there's no inserts, no dividers.
So
like
if they split or if you throw them back in a rush, you can expect quite a long time because there's quite a lot of cards of sorting through again. It's not going to be a problem immediately, and it is a bit nitpicky, but somewhere down the line, you might find that you're going, all these cards.
I'm thinking rubber bands are called for.
Yeah, just as a kind of a...
Yeah. Right, what have we got in here? Well, obviously we've got dice in here. They're resealable polythene bags. You know, it's not a lead-lined box. We can actually see through it. But we have got...
What is...
I was about to come to them. I was going to get past the bits which I understand first. We've got 6 D6s. Not really much to say about them. It's a D6. We know what they are. A couple of D20s. And I really like the... I know it's kind of just a little thing to kind of give a thumbs up to, but I actually really like the sort of sparkly light blue, almost sort of mystical effect that they've got going on to them there, which again fitting with the theme, I think.
I think so. They've really chosen how to kind of theme their dice to the game.
Yeah, and then here we've got something.
That is actually how to describe it. It's a something.
Yeah, it's basically 2 small wooden cubes painted black with holes drilled through them. It basically looks like it's fallen off someone's bead necklace or something.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to take a photo to put on the podcast just so that you at home can see this.
Yeah, because especially because the one has it's a bit different. It's kind of confusing.
Yeah, I absolutely genuinely do not know what what I am looking at here. Again, might make sense when I look through the rules, but I'm assuming if I had to guess, the
they'd be like
the player
trackers.
Yeah, the player cards which we mentioned earlier, which I will also upload a photo of so you can see. In the bottom right corner, they have got a little number track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm wondering if these little cubes here are meant to be markers for tracking your progress up or down that.
They do sit just over one pretty nicely.
But I can't help but to think that after the effort of making everything else, that seems a really lazy way of making a marker.
I think the other thing is because, again, this is nitpicky, but because they're opaque blocks. Okay, they've got a hole drilled in them, but you can't exactly see through it. Yes, we all know that numbers run 1 through to 6. However, what does happen when you place them over a number is completely obscured. Okay, we all can count, certainly up to 6. I mean, once they get into double...
We are 12 and over after all.
Once they get into double figures, it gets tricky. But I guess it would have been nice to have, I don't know, maybe more of a circle cut out that just surrounds it, or something that felt a bit higher, as you say, a bit high quality.
It almost feels like, especially as I mentioned a moment ago, the nice colours on the D20s. Even though the artwork has blown up a bit badly in some places, I've got very nice artwork going. It almost feels like this was sort of attacked on afterthought.
Yeah.
It's kind of we're packaging the game, and someone's suddenly gone, oh shit, we haven't put anything into.
How are they going to mark?
Yeah.
How are they going to mark those?
And then someone in the production room has literally just ripped off their bead necklace and emptied them into the boxes.
Be like, that'll do. They'll work it out.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, hang on, what?
So that's a bit odd.
I think later in the production run there'll be all sorts of stuff. And they're like little glass beads that you can sometimes fill vases with.
Yeah.
Just anything. Just give them something.
Right. So that is one of the bags. Okay. I'm gonna open up next and investigate the little bags which you were saying a minute ago, Phil, that you suspected might be some kind of rule explanation thing. There's actually 2 here. I'm assuming one for. Yeah, the 2 factions in this, by the way, I think it's quite a nice names for them. There's Hope and Fear. It's basically the good guys and the bad guys. And each Hope and Fear each seem to have a separate one of the setting decks, whatever.
Yeah. There seem to be a lot of duplicates of the same thing.
Yep.
Scuffle for the SS Rogue, and it's how to... I'm just kind of...
So yeah, it doesn't actually seem to be anything to do with the rules as we first had hoped. It just seems to... something.
Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure.
Excuse me. 1 to 2 each player loses all resources currently in their treasury. I don't know how resources get in the treasury, but that's something we'll probably.
Although again, like with 404, when I was unboxing that, I'm not really going into.
Yeah.
I don't understand this. I don't understand that because we have just taken it out of the box.
Yeah.
We haven't played it yet. We don't know how it
Absolutely.
works.
It's just one of those things of being like, I would expect a rules MacGuffin to be pretty.
I mean, there was one of the cool things with Clash, and which you do get with a lot of card games on Kickstarter, is they tend to issue a print and play version before the full game comes out, so you can at least kind of get a heads up and start playing it. Now, I'm sure the print and play version probably does come with a rule book, but I think it's a bit cheeky to after you've shipped the physical copy of the game to your backers, to expect them to still print out the PDF.
To understand.
The fact of the matter is, I don't own a printer. I mean,
No.
I know that sounds a bit 19th century, but I don't need to print things out generally.
No.
So I basically, whenever I want to play this game, I'm now going to have to get the laptop out, get the PDF up on the screen there, and especially if, say, I take this round to a mate's house for a game or something, and we suddenly need to clear up a rule, I'm not going to take my laptop with me just in case I need that. So
using the search function. I mean, I'm the same. I don't have a dedicated printer. Because if I'm using a PDF, I'll use the PDF. But as you say, with a game that's almost keyed to being mobile, because it is quite small, it's quite a nice, neat package. Then be like, this quite small, nice, neat package that I have to take my laptop with me.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily small or neat.
Going back to just again physically looking at the components that we've got here. Again, the this setting deck thing that we just opened up. Again, fantastic quality. I mean, the cards are a nice, thick, durable stock. Again, they've got, like you mentioned earlier, that sort of gloss finish, which is going to make them a bit more hard wearing in the long run. Print quality is fine. Text it's nice. It's a nice clear size. It's a nice clear colour. It stands out and everything. The artwork hasn't suffered any kind of loss on this on front or back. Nice and cleanly cut. I mean, I have a, not just Kickstarter games, but fine professional off-the-shelf quality games before where they're not particularly clean cut around the edges. But these are certainly printed out and cut out and shipped to a professional standard. So the cards we've looked at so far are looking good.
I think they've done the smart thing with the text, which I mean most games do, but you still get some that slip by and don't seem to do this. Is where they either have black with a white outline or white with a black outline, which is great for readability. I mean, I'm so glad that they've done that, because I have had games before which uses all sorts of fun coloured text that I'm sure look great on a screen as a proof, but when it's printed you go, I cannot read that.
Interesting, what you were saying a few minutes ago about the bags splitting when you, after a while, after putting them back in. I'm just taking out this Fate deck here.
Yeah.
And it was actually a bit of a struggle to get it out of the bag then, which means I'm imagining I'm going to have a bit of trouble getting it back in again.
Yeah.
So even though, from a manufacturing point of view and a shipping point of view, someone was probably thinking, oh, look at this, it's a perfect, nice, snug fit for the deck. For someone who's going to be taking it out and putting it back in quite often, that's
really
going to be
increases the wear that experiences.
Oh, okay. I was expecting there to be something on these cards. It just identical both sides. Just seems to say Fate on them. So okay, fair enough. Again, not being critical of the fact that it just says Fate on both sides, because we don't know what the context of that is.
Sure, it has a purpose, but
yeah, I was just kind of expecting to see something going on there, and I didn't.
Again, printed. Quality is pretty good again.
Yep. In fact, generally the cards all seem so far to be printed, similar quality of, same card stock, similar quality of printing and all that. So, excuse Phil while he just dies in the corner.
Every time I die, I try and get pretty far away from the mic, but I'm worried that I'll fall down and then just curl up and expire. So,
but if that happens, don't worry, I will carry on without you.
That's good. That's the way to go.
Okay, well, I've just opened the first of what appears to be what appears to be the two game decks. Like I said earlier, there's hope and fear as the two factions. I've just opened up Fear purely because it was the closest one to me. So first thing to notice, again, clear printing, clear cut. Now these ones, the backs of the cards are again that nice gloss finish. The front do seem to be a much more matte finish to them. So I don't know if that's going to lead to any more kind of easy wear and dog-earing and all that. The other thing I've very quickly noticed is the thickness of the card. The stock on those isn't as high as it was on these setting decks and these fake cards and everything. Although now, I don't want to be too critical of that, because at the end of the day, this is a deck, and if all of these cards were as thick as the other ones we've opened so far, it would be about twice as deep, and it probably wouldn't have actually fit in the box in the first place. But because they are a bit thinner and they're going to be a bit more prone to bending and the likes, I'm kind of getting the impression that if I do enjoy Clash and it is something I'm going to be wanting to play more often, I am going to have to invest in card sleeves, because otherwise... In fact, that is probably the only disadvantage to a non-collectible card game with set decks, is if something does become dog-eared, you can't just go and buy a booster pack to get a new one. You're going to have to go and buy a new copy of the game. The
whole thing, I mean, certainly on these edges, I think that you can almost see there, that's where you're going to get somewhere running along those edges. I mean, we were talking about the gloss versus matte. I think these front ones might be matte. I don't know how these are drawn, obviously, but I think that might be just to be matte to assist being able to easily pick it up or move it. But obviously you trade off with how durable they're going to be. And as you said, that cardstock, it's not thin, but it's certainly not as thick or robust as the other ones we were looking at. Again, the artwork is, I think, quite nice on them. It doesn't seem to suffer too much from being any sort of blown up.
In fact, I will hand over in a second. I'm just having a full-on flick through the deck myself here, and the artwork does. Okay, he's a bit ugly. The artwork on most of them does seem to be quite nice. That's the one I was talking about at the end there. I'm not so keen on the artwork for that one. It doesn't quite seem as... It's when you compare to... Where is the one? I don't know if just in case anybody does kind of Google the images or have their own ones and they're kind of comparing themselves. The one that we're just looking at the moment is called Oliver Fell Druid.
Yep.
And I'm just about to do a direct comparison to Edenite Stoneclaw and kind of the almost sort of cartoony kind of cleanness to Edenite Stoneclaw when compared to the much more kind of heavy brush strokes of Oliver Fell Druid.
Yeah, the lines are a lot heavier. I mean, it could be a play on the ice kind of thing, maybe to similarly like Frost, but I don't know if that has actually translated over well. It just looks like it's a bit heavier-handed.
Yeah, they don't quite look like they belong in the same game.
Yeah, the face on Oliver isn't quite as defined either. It just doesn't strike me as the same style as you say. It doesn't strike me as certainly in the same game or in the same deck, as it were.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I do find quite interesting, having just had a look through, and again, like I say, I will hand them over in just a second. I will stop hogging them once I've stopped rambling. This is all mine. Yeah. It's as I said, it's hope and it's fear. It's the good guys and the bad guys. And what I've noticed a lot as I'm flicking through these, again, I will pop some examples up as visual so you can kind of see what I'm talking about at home. You've got cards like, say, Aerial Varmint Queen there, and Becca the Orphan Scout. And this one particular, Ancient Watcher. I like the fact they're not just going heavy-handed in with these are evil cliches. A lot of the cards in here do look... If you were shown this and you were told this is a good or an evil card, which one do you think it is?
Yeah.
A lot of these you would put on the good side because they haven't just gone heavy-handed, cliched, this is what the bad guys look
Dark
like.
and sinister,
exactly.
Which,
so there you go, have a gander through, see what you...
I'm hoping they've done the same thing with the hope, the good side, in that you've got some that... I almost want to see things that look a bit raggedy, like Rangers, almost from Middle Earth, that sort of like bit where they go, I'm not quite sure.
In fact, the 4 characters that you've got on the character cards which came in the box, the 2 which are there's 4 characters there appears to be in this game. There's two Heralds of Fear and 2 Champions of Hope. And to be honest, when I first saw the artwork for these on the Kickstarter page, the 2 which are the Heralds of Fear, I actually would have pegged those as being the good guys.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, granted, the Herald of Fear, Briar, this guy looks like a lion. I think I was almost swayed a bit by my experience of Magic with Ajani Goldmane being a white planeswalker and thinking, he's a lion-looking dude, he's going to be a good guy. And then Eve of Eden, purely on account of the fact that it's a pale-skinned girl. It's not, again, going down the heavy-handed, I'm a monster route. So I kind of saw them and thought, they're going to be the good guys. Then the flip side of that is you got this fella, the one you mentioned earlier, Panstrom Swiftdraw. He's one of the good guys, and he is in a very dark and gloomy picture. It's got very heavy greys background. He's all in black. He's got
almost got a plague Doctor mask style
on. He's got a great big dirty battle axe hefted over his shoulder. Crows in the background. That is quite cliched bad guy look.
Yeah.
Yet he is the good guy, which I actually kind of quite like.
Also, Eve of Eden, airship captain. Shout out to Sid, my homeboy. Final Fantasy is always the way. See, again, we were talking about, this is one called Stalwart Enforcer. Is apparently in the Fear deck. But that's like a knight. Yeah, okay, he's wearing relatively dark armour. But, I mean, I wouldn't peg necessarily something called Stalwart Enforcer and a knight as being a bad guy. And I'm not saying that in any sort of bad light. I like that they've done that. I like that they've kind of subverted some of these tropes. Through. Again, a lot of these things like Jungles of Eden, I almost get the feeling that a lot of these things that are like fear orientated are more nature or natural or that kind of side of things, like returning things to a state of a primordial chaos almost, which you get in a few of these. I saw another one which is all to do with like little lantern lights and stuff. I mean, again, this Becca Orphan Scout, as you were saying, exceptionally bright card. It's very, very bright, clean artwork, and it doesn't kind of like emphasise sort of any sort of evilness. So I think that's nice the way they've done that, and it means that your decks don't ever feel like this is the gloomy deck.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we're a bit off-putting. It's too cliche. Okay.
Right, so all that we've got left to have a look at now is the Hope deck, which, in terms of physical deck, physical card quality, I'm expecting to be identical to the Fear deck, because at the end of the day, it's just basically the flip side of it.
Yeah.
So, so we're not going to have much to go on in terms of the card quality, but again, we can have a look at the artwork and see basically how they're looking.
I think definitely card sleeves in a deck box would be the way to go.
Yeah, it's feeling that. Giant mushroom.
Hey.
Oh man, check out those sideburns.
We got sideburn character.
Like, hello there, ladies.
It's not even like necessarily all the sideburns, because it joins the moustache. You've essentially got the Victorian Sergeant Major kind of look.
It's moustache and chops.
That's what this guy's been called now.
That's
He's meant to be Smith Horizon Seeker, but he's moustache and chops from here on out.
It's glorious. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite an interesting one. Josu Prayton Martyr. Again, kind of nice, clean artwork and sort of an interesting, different style to him. He's almost got sort of Oriental, like feudal feel to him.
And he kind of almost going with conventional kind of fantasy looks. It's like an Oriental feel combined with Dragon Hunter almost, because of the almost like dragon scale and bone armor. It's a really, really nice look to it.
Alright, I've got to admit, this one I don't like the artwork on. Again, it's not just that it's fuzzy. Well, it is a bit fuzzy, but it doesn't look fuzzy as in it's translated upwards badly. It just looks like it's fuzzy artwork. Or almost as if it was part of a bigger piece originally and they kind of like cropped a little section out of it.
Oh yeah, I can see what you mean.
Yeah. This is Enter the Fade we're talking about here. Again, all of these I'll be putting pictures up, so you'll.
It's like it's zoomed in too much. Like it wants to carry on out into somewhere off to like the right hand side of it. And I guess as far as, if I'm being picky as far as us telling a story, I'm not sure how it communicates entering the fade, if I'm being picky, but that is just me being picky. But I get what you meant. That's not my favourite artwork that I've seen in the deck, certainly.
Yeah, I quite like this one, Lord Magister Case the Third. That I think actually looks quite Magic the Gathering Planeswalker.
Yeah, I
style.
think again it really pulls on the steampunk elements to it as well with the goggles. If anyone else plays things like War Machine, again that's sort of the generally accepted steampunk aesthetic, if I can pronounce that right, really comes through with that one. It's very nice.
I've got another bit of a disappointment one here, Training Camp at Northway. It's pretty much a picture of a lot of grass. It's a big field. Again, like you mentioned with that other one a minute ago, that felt like it was supposed to continue on beyond the borders of the card. This one is Training Camp at Northway. You've basically got a big old meadow, and then just on the left-hand side of the picture, cut off, it's like the beginnings of some kind of perhaps castle or mansion or something on a cliff. And it feels almost like that was supposed to be the central image, but someone cut it wrong and kind of ended up getting the sort of side part, which was just meant as overflow.
I think the other interesting bit you've got with this, because, and I appreciate what they've tried to do, is that they've got like the sun shining into where the camera is, the perspective. But what I feel that is done is there's like a tree line. It's kind of bleached that. It's bleached the tree line out, and it's bleached the beginnings of the meadow out, so that really what you get is kind of like a fuzzy middle bit, and then some really lovely quite high def flowers at the bottom. Be like, oh, there's some flowers, and then a middle bit, and then sky.
I think what's happened here is that the artist has watched way too much J.J. Abrams' Star Trek and has gone lens flare crazy.
It really has. You know what castles have? Lens flare. Why would they have lens flare? But I guess if you want to like look at the Hope deck as being like indicative of some form of light and good, and it gets across that serene quality, but I think somewhat at the detriment of the art, which is a shame. But
yeah. I mean, again, it sounds like we're being very nitpicky. We should point out that for the best part, we are actually just picking out here the cards which we don't like to nitpick. Whereas
the ones that we really, really do to be like, oh, this is lucky.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of level the playing field a bit. What did I see a minute ago, which I was like, oh, this is very pretty. I said it in my head in that exact voice, just to clear things up.
Say, I got all hot and bothered over this card. Oh my!
That's one that I quite like. Wailing Widow. It's not particularly steampunky. There's not a great deal going on, but what is there, I think, has got like quite a simplistic beauty to it. It's It's kind of a less is more type thing going on.
Yeah, it's, you know what it reminds me of, probably completely incorrectly, but you might sympathise. Anyway, Yuna, Final Fantasy, during the Semblance.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it has that very,
I'm getting a bit of that vibe.
As you say, it's very mystical. It's got a lot of movement in it, even though it's only conveyed through her wrists, because she's got her hands bent. But it's almost got a... Oh, it's almost got a poetry to it.
Just before I hand the deck over for you to have a flick through,
sips tea intelligently.
The other one which I'm going to pick out just to have a look at is it's called Air Nomad Drakelord, and as we mentioned when we were looking through the Fear deck, there were no tropes, there were no cliched "I am the villain" cards. And we were wondering when we looked through the Hope deck if there was on the flip side going to be what look like villainous cards but actually turn out to be in the good deck. And to be honest, it's very without any of the cards looking identical or similar to the Fear deck. There's a lot which have got a similar sort of vibe to them, which I think is quite nice because it's not hammering home the you're good and you're evil thing. It's you are just two factions in the same world, so you have got similar aesthetics and everything going on. But quite interestingly, the only dragon which we've come across, this one, Air Nomad Drakelord, it's in the Hope deck, and aesthetically, just mostly through the head, this is quite a nice obvious design for a bad guy dragon. It's kind of very long pointed face, lots and lots of teeth on display, wide unhinged jaws, and that to me is the kind of look which you would give to a, you know, the dragon that the main supervillain rides in on, or something like that. And yeah, this is in the good guy deck, so it's kind of a nice,
especially with the maw
opposite.
stretched so wide, because it's really almost becoming to the point where it's like distended.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting, as you were saying, especially with the legs or claws coming out to the side. It's very aggressive looking, and you'd expect that to be in the bad guy deck. So I like that they've included that.
There you go. You want to?
I'll have a flick through.
Yeah.
I have tiny hands, so I have to split it into two.
I have the hands of a god.
Again, actually, this is quite nice in that not necessarily artwork, but it's in the good guy deck, the Hope deck, using assassin characters. Someone called Assassin.
Yeah, I haven't even realised that because I'm not too good with the word reading.
With the word reading, we form a good team. But you know, Assassin.
You with your reading and me with my giant hands. Together we are unstoppable.
But I just think that's interesting because typically, you know, the use of assassins is typically seen as a nefarious tactic, only used by cowards and brigands. But it's nice that they've actually got in the Hope deck someone who actually is an assassin and apparently proud of it. Guardian angel.
I bet his mum's proud of him too.
When I grow up, when my son grows up, I want him to be an assassin. That's what I want him to do.
He kills men for a living, but he always brings his mother a cake on Sundays.
I couldn't tell if he had a cunning hat or not. Yeah, I think these are, broadly speaking, quite nice, quite thematic. There's some surprises you were saying with the Air Nomad Drakelord. Yeah, it's a nice surprise, but they have a good feeling. Like nothing feels out of place in the deck, but nothing feels overly expected. So they've managed to avoid tropes, but they've not. They don't seem completely disjointed, which is nice. I prefer that. I'm going to attempt to put them back in the bag now. That'll be fun. Roll to check dexterity. For a nose.
I'll get my D20 out.
You,
16?
60. I don't know what my dexterity was. Apparently not very good.
Wait, I'm going to roll my bead with a hole in it. I've got the hole. I think that's a critical... Well, it's either critical success or a critical fail.
It'd be nice to know what they did. Again, this... I know it's obviously not... something we're looking at the moment, but it kind of bugs me that is a whole component that's missing from the game that you get. Because even you and I went, right, we've got a game, we want to play it now, this looks great, let's have a game. Oh bugger.
Yeah,
Make up the rules.
Yeah, I mean, earlier on today, because it's tabletop day and we have been kind of cycling through our games a little bit. Start of the day, we actually grabbed a few casual card games. We took Coup, we took Showdown Icons, even though we sadly didn't get time to play that. We took Batman Love Letter, and basically, because it's a nice day, we just chucked them in a bag, headed down the pub, and just had a few games out in the pub garden in the sun. And there was a point where I was thinking, shall we bring Clash? Shall we open that up and have a look at it? And if we had done that, then that would have been slightly more disappointing, because we would have been like, great, let's open it up. How do we play? We don't know. Yeah,
there's a key component missing, and you might very well, as you say, be able to download it, and that's absolutely fine. But
if you've provided a physical copy of the game, you need to provide a physical copy of the rule book. I think that's. I don't think that's an over expectation in any means.
No.
Anything. I think that is a fairly standard part of supplying a game.
Yes.
So
the means to play it, rather than like, these are lovely cards. So
that is all the components looked at. So just kind of, Jerry Springer style, final thought, just basically having a quick sum up of everything. So box itself, little disappointing. It's not very sturdy. It's very flimsy. It feels more like something that was sent to you, so just as a way of transporting the cards to yourself. But not something that's supposed to stand the test of time. Artwork on the box, nice artwork, but doesn't seem to have blown up to box size particularly well. And then there was just that little niggly thing about the non-easy peel sticker, which is sealing the box shut. So, I'm forever stuck with a Mad Ape Games sticker across the rest of the box, which is a bit annoying.
I kind of feel like that box is the box that you get an expansion in for something that you've already got a box for, or that you get components of a game in that is kind of like a given that you're already going to put in something else, like Magic cards, because they always go in a deck box because you make a deck.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a standalone box that you then put things away and put it on a shelf.
Yeah. So then player cards, very nice artwork, good quality card stock on that. So the only downside to those was the artwork, again on Raven's Storm Shroud, where she had started to get a bit blurry, blowing up. Now these were the first things that we looked at when we opened it, and we did kind of pick this out. It's worth noting that, having looked through all the rest of the cards now, that is the only one that we found where the artwork wasn't quite high resolution enough. So while that one is a bit of a letdown, everything else seems to be.
I think it's because those ones are to a bigger size as well, whereas you're actually standard size cards, and they've not had to obviously upscale them as much, so I don't think you get as much of an effect. There's some where we can't tell whether it's the scaling or whether it's the art style in amongst the Fear deck, especially with the wintry looking guy, because I forget his name. We've put it away now and I'm not taking it out of the bag again.
Yeah. He had quite a normal sounding name, didn't he?
It
like
was
Steve or something.
Keith.
Yeah.
Apologies to anyone called Keith. It's just
Keith Snow Thrower.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but that one could very much be the art style, and your mileage will vary on art style. Inevitably, that's how that will go. But they're nice quality things, I think.
Yeah. Clear printed, clear, clean cut around the edges. Like I say, the deck's definitely, I'd say, invest in card sleeves if it's going to be a regularly played thing, which I'm certainly hoping it will be.
Yeah, I hope so.
But yeah, that's going to be a definite investment for the future. Yeah, apart from the card decks, the other ones that we've got here, the fate cards and the setting decks, much heavier card stock, very nice quality, very nice printing on them and everything. So I'm happy with those. And then it's just the that dice issue again. Not the dice, the things which are in the dice bag, which are presumably the tracker token things, which just seem like a bit of a very cheap, not particularly well done add-on, which is it's only a small, very small element of the game, but it just feels like it's almost letting the rest of the side down, because the rest of it has been manufactured quite nicely.
One of those like answers on a postcard as to what I do with this kind of moment. I think if I got this game genuinely, whilst I joke about having the little glass beads, I think I'd get rid of those and invest in some little glass game encounters.
Yeah.
Because they're a little bit more transparent, and it just seems like they'd be slightly higher quality.
Yeah.
Just aesthetically.
And then obviously, as we've mentioned a few times, the rulebook issue, that I don't want to sound like I'm being really critical of a game which I haven't played yet, because I'm not criticising the game. I can't criticise a game I haven't played, but I am here to point out any criticisms in the physical elements of it. And to be honest, not including a rulebook is a major oversight.
Well, I mean, let's put it on the flip side. I mean, regardless that this game was Kickstarted, which requires the internet, if we were however many years ago where we didn't have the internet, and people weren't able to issue PDFs and erratas and all these other sort of things, you could never release a game without a rulebook. You couldn't do it.
No.
You couldn't just be like, oh, there's no rulebook, sorry, it'll come later, or oh, you got to download the rulebook.
Yeah. Send a stamped addressed envelope to this.
And we'll send you the rulebook.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. And whilst the internet's great, it has enabled these sort of things. I mean, you start to see it across video games as well. I mean, I know we're not that sort of cast, and that's fine, but just being like, oh, it's broken, so we'll put a patch out. It's the same sort of thing in that, oh, you can't play it, but that's okay. We'll PDF you it later. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I kind of feel that should be physically in the box, because I kind of feel when you buy something, you should be able to play it immediately. And that's something I want to point out.
I mean, that's why For me, obviously the tabletop hobby has got a lot of elements to it: card games, board games, miniatures, etc. And the reason that I used to be very much into miniatures games like Warhammer and so on, and I skewed over into the board game and card game side of things, is purely because I liked how something where you open the box, get it out on the table, and start playing straight away.
Yeah.
And purely because of the rulebook thing, Clash Dawn of Steam doesn't have that.
No.
So
it's not a pick up and play as soon as it arrives to you in the post. You have to do something before doing it, and if you don't know that, you could grab this before going on a long weekend away. And be like, oh, I'll play my new game.
Yeah.
Oh, I've not got internet. I'm in like a cottage in the middle of nowhere with no internet. I don't have the rulebook.
Yeah.
Bugger.
I think we've pretty much covered everything there. And then of course there is not the game element, but just the simple Kickstarter element to the fact that I also pledged for an art book,
Yes.
which I don't have. So again, there might be some kind of it might be getting shipped separate from the game. I'm just going to have to look into that. But purely because of the absence of the rule book, I'm kind of sitting here thinking, is there some kind of book printing issue here? They run out of staples or something. So I'm going to go investigating where my art book is. I'm going to get in touch with them, and even though I could, sneak into work and print off something there, I could print off myself a copy of the rule book. I would rather have a physical copy, so I might even go so far as to email Mad Ape Games and say, hi, I gave you money, can I have a rule book so I can play your game?
Just a little leaflet one is fine.
Yeah.
I like the idea that...
P.S. You're going to get a very bad review if the reviewer can't play your game.
I've been like, I'm sure it is certainly at least passable. But I like the idea that your rulebook is currently being hand drawn in Crayola, just like.
So first impressions of Clash Dawn of Steam. Very nice looking game. Physical components not all as good as perhaps they should be. Price wise, in fact, I should mention this. I think was around the £30 mark. So not bad fare. Not bad fare, really. When I opened 404, I was saying that cost me about £26, something like that. And I was saying when I opened it, it felt like I'd got a £26 game. Clash, I'm not entirely sure I'd be willing to go as far as to say I've got my £30 worth there, just because of those couple of lower quality components and the lack of ease of storage within the box, the lack of the rulebook again, going back to that fact. So I'd be maybe on the cusp. I'm not willing to flat out say no, I haven't got my £30 worth there, but I'm not enthusiastically leaping in and saying yep, I've got my money's worth. Yeah. So yeah.
I think we can tell from the side that it's a 45-minute playtime once you've learnt the rules. But that's as far as we can go on actual playability. Yeah. I know what you mean with saying that you don't know whether you've got that. I think it looks like it could be certainly very good. I'd want to see some of the additional components. I'd want to see a physical rule book before I was enthusiastically jumping at the opportunity and also telling other people to give them their money for this game. Until that point, it's a strong maybe as far as it goes. I think it's a lovely produced thing. Niggles put aside, obviously, with the slight issues we have with the box, the storage, the sticker that is now half peeled.
Yeah.
But I think you're always going to get some teething issues, like any game. Certainly a kind of like a first one in a series, and hopefully we see more from Clash Dawn of Steam. I'd certainly like to see some expansions. I think they've got quite a nice potential IP here. So
So hopefully we will, once we've actually got a copy of the rulebook in hand, actually be able to give it a few playthroughs and get a review up and running on the blog soon. Until then, thank you very much for tuning in again. Thank you to Phil for sitting in on this one and giving me someone to bounce ideas off rather than just rambling into the mic for a quarter of an hour. Coming up next, we have got another Kickstarter project on the way in called Argent the Consortium, which is a resource management board game. So hopefully when that comes in, we'll be able to do another unboxing podcast of that, which will be a little bit more in depth. So brace yourselves for that one, because obviously board game is going to have a lot more elements to it. Apart from that, you know, I hope you enjoyed listening, and pop back again soon. If you want to check out the full blog, it's just www.gamesandtea.com. And thank you very much.
Cheers.